Excellent. It looks like we're recording. I'm just going to wait one more second for Sarah, my planner, to get on the screen with us, and we'll start our meeting. That is not attractive. Let's hope it's not one of those evenings all evening long. So we'll get started. Sarah was working with our IT support, trying to get everything worked out. So I'll give her a minute to get on, but I just want to explain. Tonight, we've got 3 items on our bond meeting agenda. So we're going to go through each of these individually, and I apologize for those of you that will have to wait. But eventually we'll be doing these meetings live, and there'll be an agenda just like any other meeting, and everybody kind of has to wait their turn. So the first item on tonight's agenda is 1002. Thank you. 1002 East Blanco Road. And this is for a rezoning from O1 to a C1. I don't see, I believe, and I'll double check with Sarah when she gets on, Dr. Sharma is the one I've got as the applicant. Is there anybody that is representing Dr. Sharma in this request for rezoning?
Yes, this is Antonio, Director of Operations for Freedom Campaign Center.
Mr. Cavazos, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful. So I'll just explain how the meeting works for those of you that have not been on a bond meeting before. So first of all, this is a voluntary thing that any developers or somebody coming in and asking for a request for rezoning, they request this meeting, and this is an outreach to the neighborhood, and actually everybody that signs up for notifications from the city will get a text saying that we're having a bond meeting. So you don't have to be the neighbor to this property to participate in the meeting. But this is an information sharing meeting. Typically what we do is we'll allow Mr. Cavazos to go first, explain the project and kind of what their thoughts are on, in this particular case, rezoning. And then we allow the community, anybody that wants to, one at a time, ask questions. My video is having problems. Ask questions of the developer or the applicant. And then it's just kind of free conversation in an orderly manner so that everybody gets a chance to ask questions and get answers. And like I said, it is videotaped, so you can go back and watch it later. You can share it with your neighbors. You can share it with the community. Council members will see this, and P&Z members look at it as well. So let's get started. I've got, let me share my screen and I'll just show you all kind of where we're talking about. Let's see if I can figure this out. I have many screens. Okay, here we go. So I think those of you that are on here, that's not a great location map, but in general, it's off of Blanco Road. Here we go. This is probably a little closer. Blanco and Oak. Now
you're on the other screen.
Pardon?
You're on the other screen. We can see your folder.
There you go. Yeah, you don't want to see my folder. There you go. Can you see that now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Let me get back to this. So the property is located 1002 Blanco. Now there are 2 buildings and 2 separate lots. The rezoning is not for this front lot. This will remain in O1, but it's actually for this back lot. And as I understand it, there's already a medical office in this building, but under the new zoning regulations in O1 doesn't automatically allow a medical office. So there are a couple of options here. Either they request a rezoning that would allow a medical office, which is what they're doing, or they could ask for a special use permit in an O district for that specific use. They've chosen to ask for the rezoning to a C1. Let's see if I've got anything else I could share with y'all. Future land use plan calls for this type of use in this area. Sorry. My screen keeps going back. There you go. Future land use plan is a planning document that we use that talks about where types of uses should go. So as far as staff is concerned, the commercial use is appropriate, but that could include anything from an O district to a C district. So these are the types of uses that are permitted in the non-residential zoning table. Here's your O district uses and here's your C1 district uses. So these are the different uses that would be permitted if the zoning were changed to a C1. You should have, those of you that are within 200 feet should have gotten a letter of notification, and all of that information is in your letter announcing the public hearing, which will be October 4th in the council chamber. So that's the public hearing that is before the Planning and Zoning Commission. And all of you, again, if you so choose, would be permitted to come speak at that meeting as well. And if it moves forward to council, then you could speak at that time too. So you still have several opportunities to speak. This is just a fairly informal discussion between the applicant and the neighbors, or whoever else has questions, to be able to have an interchange and discuss the project. So Mr. Cavazos, you want to speak to kind of what the plans are for the zoning?
Sure. As you discussed, under new regulations, unfortunately, we can't use the building as a medical usage for an O1, which is why we have decided to pursue the C1 rezoning, since it's basically the exact same process as a special use permit. Previously on that same location, same building, it was used for physical therapy. So basically it's the same usage. There was a physical therapist there on site that saw maybe between 15 to 40 patients a day, which basically mirrors the same amount of patients that we're going to see on a daily basis. I'm sure probably some of the concerns from the neighbors is probably parking. That won't be an issue, since we have been allowed to use the parking on that neighboring parking lot from the other owners. We have that in writing. So in case there is an overflow of patients needing to park somewhere else, they would be allowed to park on that neighboring lot next door. So they wouldn't be any concerns as to patients parking on the streets. I think that would be one of the main concerns. I'm putting myself on your shoes, that would be one of my concerns too. So.
And what you mean by neighboring lot, let me just clarify, you're talking about this one that's closer to Blanco, right?
That is correct.
Okay. So you have a shared parking agreement with them? That
is correct. And we have that in writing. So just in case we need to send some patients, or patients need to park over there, it won't be an issue.
Okay, great, thank you.
But the usage is basically for clinical and medical purposes. Dr. Sharma, he is an interventional pain management doctor. We are growing very rapidly, so we decided to purchase that building just because of the amount of patients that we see. And in the building that we currently are at, we just outgrown it pretty much. But that's basically it. The usage would be for medical usage purposes only.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? And if you'll just announce your name so that we can make note of who's speaking, and one at a time, please. Is there anybody that wants to ask any questions of Mr. Cavazos? I see Jonah's face.
Hey, Laura, I have a question for you all. Thank you all for having this meeting, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to comment. So first of all, I just want to say that a few days ago, there was a light left on. I actually live at 117 Oak Lane, right next door to this property. And I didn't know who to contact, and contacted the city. And whoever it was, if it was Dr. Sharma or someone else on his team, they went there and turned off that light immediately. So I really appreciate their effort to try to be a good neighbor. I don't have any problem at all with that place being a doctor's office. We lived here when the physical therapy office was there, and it was completely fine. I would not have any concern with them getting a special use permit under the O1 to use this facility. What does concern me and what I would not be in support of is an O1, I'm sorry, a C1 designation, because I know that sometimes deals fall apart, sometimes, property sells at one point, and the C1 designation opens up that property to be a whole long variety of things that I would not be happy to have next door, and I think would be incompatible with the uses in our neighborhood. And so that would be things like a grocery store, a restaurant, retail sales, a bar, or I guess some of these things might require special use permits, but a lot of things that I think would be disruptive to the neighborhood. And so I would really encourage the applicants to consider the special use permit, because I think as is with a C1, there might be significant opposition from the neighbors about the potential for what could happen there. Not the doctor's offices. I don't think anyone has concern about that. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonah. Does anybody else want to ask any questions or make any comments? If not, I'll ask if Mr. Cavazos wants to say anything else. If not, then we can move on to the next agenda item. I'm sorry, my screen keeps freezing. I have to keep turning it on and off. So just ignore my face.
No problem. Thank you, Jonah, for your comments. I mean, that's a reasonable explanation of what you're thinking. And I was the one that actually turned off the light that day. But I am open to give my contact information in case we leave it on again, or if for some reason you guys need to contact the property owners, I'm glad to pick up the phone and answer any questions that you might have or things that need to be addressed at that point. It's probably not it's not the place to give out my information yet, but maybe at a later date, I'm free to give my email, my contact, and all that stuff.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you want to send it to us, Mr. Cavazos, we can, if you're okay with it, we can share it with anybody that asks. But you're
Most
right,
definitely.
everybody will see this, so.
Most definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't have any other comments.
Y'all can contact Sarah.
Yes, I have Mr. Cavazos' information. So if you guys need, just let me know.
So Sarah in the planning office can get that to you if you'd like his contact information. Thank you all so much. Now, if you want to hang on and listen to the rest of it, you certainly can, or if you want to leave now, you can. We've got 2 more items on the agenda. 21 Old San Antonio. Now this is a little unusual, and I may have to ask Sarah to speak to it because she's a little more familiar with it than I am, but it's a rezoning for multifamily. What's the current zoning, Sarah?
Right now is C1, if I'm not mistaken.
Let me get to it. I guess I can just pull up the file. Let me get to it.
Yeah, so right now it's on C1, and it's part of the overlay district. So when you're under the Heritage Corridor Overlay District, you have some other restrictions that apply to your base zoning category. And one of the restrictions is for multifamily. So for you to be allowed to have a multifamily, and when we're talking about multifamily in this case is 18 units or less per acre, you still need to apply for R4U. And once you have the R4U, you need a special use permit to have an 18 units or less per acre. So the idea of the overlay is to control the density of the area that is extremely important to the community as preservation.
Right. So we've got 2 things going on here. One, they've got it's a commercial zoning right now. But in order for them to have apartments in this particular overlay, which is the Heritage Corridor Overlay, they have to have not only the R4U, which is multifamily zoning, they also have to have an SUP, special use permit. So the special use permit, the zoning allows the underlying apartment use, but the special use permit actually kind of gives us a lot of control as to how the property's laid out, height constraints, that sort of thing. There's also some other regulations within the heritage overlay, which affects this property. And it talks about, you know, a lot of it was environmental concerns because it's close to the creek. So we tried to take into effect their specific open space requirements that are more restrictive than that are regulated in other areas. And there are drainage requirements. Their drainage, you know, if it's up front, it's got to be green and grassy and a certain slope and so forth. So all of those things, when they get through the zoning and the special use permit, then they have to come back and plat the property. And all of the real minute details will be discovered then. But right now, what they provided us, and I'll show y'all, is an overall plan for the site based on the criteria that we've had discussions on. And that's not what I'm looking for. There we go. Here we go. So this is the proposed site plan that will be considered as part of the as part of the special use permit. So again, they'll get underlying zoning. We don't really look at site plans at that point, but we do with special use permits. Let me shrink this down a little bit so everybody can see it. And I've got, is it Mr. Cavazos, Sarah, that's representing the property?
Yes,
Okay. I believe Mr. Cavazos is also on this meeting
he is. Let me go check with him. Just a sec.
with us. Is it CAVWI perhaps?
Yes.
Okay, great. So he is on, let's make sure he's not having technical issues, but I would give him a few minutes to kind of talk about the plans for the site, you know, 1-story buildings, 2-story buildings, what is he really looking at? And with the special use permit, you can regulate all of those things. So we can place conditions on the site that are specific to height constraints, buffers, those sort of things. But let's get him on so that he can talk about his plan, and then we'll go from there. Give us just a second. He actually came into the office and is sitting in the other room so that he can get good connection. But it doesn't sound like it's working. I may have to bring him back here.
Let me reclaim the host and I'll share some of the images he sent.
Is he going to be able to speak, Sarah? Because I don't.
Yes, he will.
If so, he needs to unmute.
I believe he will. So let me just make sure I have.
I'll tell you
the
what, if
correct
you're going to pull up
files.
the images, I'll go check on Mr. Cavazos. So Sarah's going to take charge.
Let me put this one up. Okay. Can you see the rendering right now?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Do you want to talk about the image, Mr. Cavazos?
Okay, can you hear us now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, can you go back to pardon? Can you go, okay, there you go. Okay, our proposed project is a 34-unit townhome project that will be gated. It'll consist, they will all be 2-bedroom, 2.5 baths. They will rent for about $1,500 a month. Towards, on this drawing here, on the left-hand side, you see where the distance from the road to where you, the little stand where the keys are to open the gate, 60 feet. We're providing 60 feet of stack space. And then immediately to the right will be the office. And then the rest is pretty self-explanatory. Parking according to code. The finish would be a cream stucco similar to limestone color. The roofs would be metal roofs. We do intend to preserve all of the heritage trees and add any additional trees that may be required. The front part of the project there, where you see on the right and on the left, will be slightly, that grassy area will be slightly depressed for detention for stormwater drainage. And then it will be engineered to allow the overflow to go in the drainage canal that's along the old San Antonio Road. This is another view of the project. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
I'll make just a couple of comments before we open it up to questions. These appear to be what anybody else would call townhomes, but because they're all on one lot, they're considered multifamily. So
Okay, sure.
a townhome by our standards, each one of those would be on individual lots. So that's not, this is actually by our standards considered multifamily. So I just want to be clear about what that means.
Yes, let me explain the configuration.
Sure.
All of the units have the living, dining, and a guest restroom on the bottom floor. And then the 2 bedrooms are on the second floor. They each have their own private entrance. They will not have any neighbors above or below. And they will have sound rated double stud walls with double gypboard walls for maximum sound isolation. It should be a very comfortable living unit because you don't have neighbors walking on top of you, or you don't have to worry about neighbors below you. And the heavy duty party walls will also sort of control the sound from adjoining units.
Great. The other thing I would mention, because we have talked about this in probably more detail than we typically do when we're talking about zonings, but it's an unusual configuration of a site. So Mr. Cavazos has tried to work out as much detail as he can prior to actually platting the property. They do have to, under the new regulations, follow low impact development. So that means they've got to clean the water as it comes off their site. They have to provide detention individually for their site. In this case, as he described, it'll be up front, but it'll be this grassy low in the front area. And per the overlay district, that's all that would be allowed in the front. Also, there is a very, very large heritage tree on the site that we've already noted, and that would need to be preserved. So we'll you know, as part of the design, he'll find some way to put it in one of these, maybe a larger island or something, but we'll have to work around that. Fire guys have already kind of looked at this kind of initially. So that distance off of the street, we've already talked about that. So a lot of the details have been worked out to this point, but still not to the detail that we would with a plat. So just know that we've kind of looked at it from that perspective already. Is there anybody that has any questions? And if so, you can just unmute yourself and just tell me your name and we'll get started. Tony, no questions. Mr. Walters, no questions. See a couple of people on here, I know. Okay. If we don't have any questions, Mr. Cavazos, is there anything else you wanted to add before we close out?
No, I was just curious what the format of the next meeting will be. The next meeting will be with planning and zoning.
Yes, sir. So that will be a public hearing before the Planning and Zoning Commission. And the way we posted this, both of the items will be considered at one time, the zoning and the special use permit, so that they can kind of understand the full picture. But there will be a public hearing. Those folks within 200 feet have been notified. Of course, we notify with the bond meeting, we notify, and even with the P&Z and council meetings, we notify. Anything that's put on the calendar is notified to anybody that signs up for messages. Of course, we put it in the newspaper and so forth. So the message is out. There's a bright yellow sign out front. So the next opportunity will be the Planning and Zoning meeting. Again, that's on October 4th at 6 p.m. at the council chambers. And it'll give anybody a chance to speak at that point. Mr. Cavazos, you can speak again at that point. And I would imagine, because there are probably going to be some questions by the commission, that they may call you up and ask you for some more detail once we get into the discussion part of it.
Will it be an open meeting?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So in the council chamber, 6 p.m. October 4th.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Anybody, I'm gonna give y'all last chance in case anybody's having problems unmuting. I don't see anybody moving around. Okay,
Okay,
thank you, Mr. Cavazos. I
I'll be
appreciate
leaving.
your time, and we'll see you on the 4th.
Okay.
We have one final item on our agenda this evening, and this is for it's actually a special use permit for a drive-through for a proposed coffee shop. Sarah, if you still got control, you're welcome to run with the exhibits if you want to show them where it is.
No, I just forwarded to you.
Okay, that's fine. I got it. So current zoning, I think everybody's familiar with El Rio. We've got, used to be Bell's, now it's Specs. We've got the gym on this end, Jiffy Lube's up front, and they are proposing a drive-through coffee shop.
I don't
on the
think you're
side.
sharing your screen, Laura.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Do you see my, well, no. Let me try again. Keep doing this. There we go. All right, one more time. This is the location where we've got a gym here. We've got Specs Liquor Store. El Rio's back here. I think it's the Eye Doctors up here, Jiffy Lube. What they're proposing is a coffee shop, which I have a site plan for. Let me take a peek real quick. Here we go. And Sarah, I think you have something even prettier than this in our file. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Nope.
If you go on the application folder,
Yeah, that's where I'm at.
the development report, you have a few pictures.
Oh, there we go. That's what I was looking for. I knew I saw something more attractive. There we go. So this would be in what is now the parking area, kind of between Jiffy Lube and I'm sorry, I can't remember the name of it, but it's the I place. Let's see if there's anything else. There we go. And here we go. And as part of this, where they're allowed to have a coffee shop, it's considered a restaurant by our definition. They're allowed to have the coffee shop. It's the drive-through aspect of the coffee shop that requires approval. And I do see Mr. Garrett is on the line and ready to speak. Did you want to kind of describe what the plan is here, sir?
I will, and possibly if you could, first of all, thank you all for hosting this. It's late at night, and I know it's never fun to do it after working hours, but we appreciate you doing this. So I'm wondering if you scroll down, we did submit a site plan. You've done a great job of showing the building renderings there, but you may want to share that. There we go. Get closer there. A little further down, maybe.
Sorry, it's the operator, not
Okay, that's okay. No.
There we go.
Okay. Well, yeah, there was actually
I
another.
got it. I got it this time. Here we go.
But this will work as well, I'm sure.
Do we have something else? I can
There may be down below that. Yeah, there you go.
There we
Shows stacking abilities and such as well. But there was
Okay.
we've submitted quite a package and things trying to identify everything about the development. But very briefly, so we don't tie people up long, it is a purely drive-through coffee concept. No sit down, no seating, no on-site service and things other than there's a walk-up window, primarily for the convenience of the tenants and people in the businesses that surround. We do walk-up traffic. We focus and have facilities like this in New Braunfels in Shopping Center. In Seguin, we have one. In Schertz, we have one. We recently opened one in B.O.N.D on the original HEB developed site, which is probably the closest to your community. And I would encourage anyone that's going possibly towards B.O.N.D on Highway 46. We're just before 281, where the original HEB fueling site was. We leased that property for a long term from the HEB folks. They're very happy with us. We're very, very excited about future parking lots and what we can do. But what we look for is excess parking where a center maybe has changed its usage. First thing we do is we identify, where we can fit into that development. If it works for everyone, then we look at the existing parking and what the impact will be versus what's required in the parking, which there's a summary table included in our submittal. We've done that. We're still exceeding the parking requirements, even with this development. If it goes through under the SUP, there would still be 35 parking spaces excess for what's required within the development. So we look at all of those things. We look at the traffic flows. We've opened 5 of these literally this year in the surrounding communities to Boerne. We're very excited about the opportunity to come to Boerne. But our peak time of business is 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning. Now we do steady business throughout the day, but peak is 7:30 to 8:30. And very briefly, I'd like you to know that, and we included this in our submittal package as well with the request, is that the businesses in the center typically don't open till 9 or 10, and we've identified those. So our peak traffic has come and gone by the time the businesses that are there now, or the traffic impacts to those, where they may start picking up the day, we're actually, decreasing in that aspect of it. But you have one of the greater requirements here of stacking requirements of 10. We've shown that we will be able to accommodate 18 at any given time. So we're almost twice what would be required by your code requirements. Most cities are still running under 6 or so, but 10 is, with COVID and what we've learned from things and drive-through concepts. I'm glad y'all have gone that route. We design for more always and things because we have no intent to want to encumber traffic or surrounding businesses in any way. And as far as our processes go, our orders and things are taken via iPad. So in that rendering that's on the screen now, you'll see that red designated area. That's an internal sidewalk, and in between the drive-through secondary lanes, it's another employee lane. And our process works where they actually go along, take the orders on the iPads. 83% of our business is collected via credit card. So by the time the customer is through the process, it's about 20 to 30 seconds max, and they're out the window. So we move the traffic very efficiently. And we know people are in, in the morning, if you're blue collar, you're in a hurry to get to where you want to be. If you're white collar, you might have a little more time, but we treat everybody equally and make that traffic flow so that we're not encumbering things in any way. So the company itself, On the Grind, it started in 2013. The owner came out of the Northwest in the industry. He's very familiar with it. He knows what he's doing. We run very clean facilities. We run very efficient facilities. And I heard you in the previous conversation and things. One of the things too here, this area right now is 100% paved. So we would not be adverse to taking a portion of the internal area and turning it into a green area, thereby decreasing the impervious cover. So we have no problems doing that with landscaping if it's required or encouraged by shielding of the dumpster, anything like that that we can do. Our water usage and things for our concept, we put in the smallest meter that the government entity furnishes because we use very minimal water. Most of our processes and things are done through milk and dairy products and things which are brought into, in refrigeration, stored in refrigeration, and then products are mixed and sent out accordingly. So I'm glad to speak more. I hope that's a very quick summary for you, but I can also answer any questions or concerns that anyone attending may have.
Great, thank you very much. That was a lot of detail. I appreciate it.
You bet.
Is there anybody that has any questions? I'll give you a minute.
One other thing, if I could mention there, please.
course.
We have also in the development, all the existing driveways. There's no request to change any of the driveway configurations on the property. And I believe we identified, I know we did, I believe there's 4 existing driveways now. So as far points of ingress, egress, so we're not, we should not be impacting anything outside what is normal at this time. We're just taking a underutilized area and turning it into, more sales tax and property tax for the community and hopefully a long-term, benefit for both of us and things, because we give back to the communities, we contribute to the communities, and we want to be a part of your community if this works out.
Great. I see some shadows on the pavement there, but you're not taking out any trees, right?
No, ma'am, not a bit. That's shadows of existing trees.
Yeah.
Google Earth.
Wonderful. Does anybody have any questions? Again, this will be an action item on October 4th, public hearing on October 4th at 6 p.m. in the council chambers. So anybody's welcome to come make comments at that point as well. But now's your chance to ask him one-on-one questions. So don't see anybody unmuting. So Mr. Garrett, I appreciate your time and your very thorough explanation. And I imagine we'll see you at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
Yes, ma'am, you will. Thank you for your time. Appreciate y'all very much.
You're welcome. And like I said before, the recordings will be online, and feel free to share these with your clients or anybody that has any questions. Otherwise, I don't see anybody that wants to make any comments. One last time, I hate to cut anybody out. Okay.
Okay.
Well, thank you, everybody. And Mr. Garrett, we'll see you on October 4th.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.